When Earth's rescue fleet was attacked, the aliens expected a protest, maybe a formal complaint. But instead, humanity launched a diplomatic note attached to an asteroid, express delivered through their flagship's hull. Apparently, humans didn't handle grievances quite like other species did. Commander Ryan Mills paced the dimly lit command deck of Earth's orbital defense platform, overseeing the frantic activities of his officers as they monitored transmissions from the crippled rescue fleet near Proxima Centauri. A distress call had come in only hours earlier, garbled yet unmistakable. The humanitarian ships dispatched to provide medical assistance to survivors of a recent solar storm on the Allied Varian colony had been ambushed without provocation. "Any updates on the fleet status?" Mills snapped, addressing Lieutenant Marcus Green, who sat hunched at a console surrounded by a maze of flickering screens. "Sir," Green began, voice tight with suppressed anger, "only 2 ships remain operational. The rest are drifting, heavily damaged, or completely destroyed. Life signs are minimal." Mills clenched his jaw. The attack had been brutal, swift, and utterly unexpected. Earth's reputation as an interstellar aid provider had shielded its ships from hostility for decades. Humanity had operated under the naive belief that compassion offered a measure of invincibility. That illusion now lay shattered amidst the wreckage near Proxima Centauri. "Do we have confirmation on the aggressors yet?" Mills demanded, fists tightening at his sides. "Yes, Commander," Green replied, hesitating slightly. "They appear to be Chthoni." A hush fell across the command deck at the mention of the Chthoni, an aggressive, territorial species notorious for exploiting weaker worlds, but never before bold enough to strike openly at humanity. "Alert Earth Command," Mills ordered. "Tell them diplomacy just went extinct." Hours later, the massive orbital defense platform had transformed from a quiet surveillance station into a seething hub of military preparation. Technicians scrambled to arm planetary defense cannons. Pilots raced to launch bays. Fleet officers coordinated strike plans that had gathered dust for generations. Admiral Theodore Lang strode onto the command deck, his arrival silencing all conversations. Tall and broad-shouldered, Lang radiated a quiet menace born of decades spent safeguarding humanity's reach among the stars. "Commander Mills," Lang growled, eyes narrowing slightly. "Walk me through our response." "We've confirmed Chthoni involvement, sir," Mills began, meeting Lang's steely gaze evenly. "The attack occurred without provocation, during a humanitarian mission. Over 6,000 casualties. Almost no survivors." Lang absorbed the news with chilling calm. "Do we have confirmation from the surviving vessels?" "Yes, Admiral," Mills replied. Captain Devlin of the vessel Mercy transmitted a detailed account before losing comms. "They targeted our medical ships first, systematically disabling and destroying them." The Admiral's fist tightened imperceptibly. "And the Velians?" "No word yet, sir," Mills said grimly. "Likely the Chthoni have silenced or suppressed their communications. This was a planned strike." Lang nodded slowly, deliberating his next words. "Commander Mills," he said at last, "Earth's response must be swift, decisive, and unmistakable. Summon the Terran First Fleet. We'll show the Chthoni and the rest of the galaxy what happens when they betray humanity's trust." Throughout Earth's colonies, the news spread rapidly. Screens in public squares and private homes flashed images of wrecked humanitarian ships, the emblem of the Red Cross visible on shattered hulls drifting silently in space. Outrage surged among Earth's billions, but it was nothing compared to the reaction within the military ranks. Captain Leon Reed paced the flight deck of the battleship Retribution, glaring at the distant stars visible through thick viewport glass. Reed was known for his stoicism, but now his knuckles whitened as he read the latest casualty report scrolling on his handheld tablet. "Captain," First Officer Jacob Trent said softly, approaching cautiously. "Fleet-wide communication from Admiral Lang incoming." Reed acknowledged with a terse nod. Moments later, Lang's stern visage appeared on all screens, his voice resonating powerfully. "Humanity's goodwill has been rewarded with betrayal," Lang declared. "Our rescue fleet, unarmed and dedicated solely to saving lives, has been brutally attacked by Chthoni forces. Diplomacy has failed. Compassion has been spat upon. Now, humanity will respond in the language our enemies understand clearly: overwhelming force. A collective murmur rippled through the crew on Retribution's bridge, replaced quickly by a grim silence. To the crews of our fleet, Lang continued, your orders are simple: find the Chthoni fleet responsible and obliterate it. Let every hostile species watching understand the cost of harming humanity. The Admiral's image faded, leaving behind a tense stillness. Captain Reed turned sharply to his crew, his voice cold with quiet rage. Prepare for immediate departure, Reed commanded. Set course for Proxima Centauri. As the engines of Earth's battle fleet ignited, the stars seemed to tremble at the impending arrival of humanity's vengeance. The oath of ash and flame. Hyperspace folded around the Terran First Fleet like a vast, glistening cocoon. Within its corridors, on its bridges, inside its engines and weapons arrays, humanity prepared for war. The journey from Earth's orbital stations to Proxima Centauri took mere hours, but the psychological shift, from peace to vengeance, had already been made. On board the battleship Retribution, Captain Leon Reed stood alone in the observation chamber. No stars were visible from this vantage. Only streaks of distorted light, bent by impossible velocities. He felt it, anger in his blood, pressure in his chest. Rage had a shape. And it was coming. Status, he barked as he stepped onto the bridge. Lieutenant Beckley looked up from his console. Fleet remains in formation. Weapons at full charge. Drones synced and locked. Shields calibrated to deflect plasma-based impacts. And the Marines? First and third boarding divisions are ready, sir. Zero-G combat harnesses tested and loaded. Reed nodded once. We drop out in 3 minutes. First Officer Trent approached, quietly sliding a data tablet across the console. Captain, intelligence suggests the Chthoni fleet is holding position near the remains of our medical vessels. They're guarding something. The prototype weapon, or something worse, Reed muttered. For someone, Trent added. We still don't have confirmation on Velian survivors. Reed didn't respond. His silence was answer enough. Hyperspace collapsed. The fleet erupted into real space in perfect formation. Proxima Centauri's dull red glow bathed the wreckage of the ambushed convoy like funeral firelight. And beyond it, an array of Chthoni warships, 30 strong, triangular in design, blood-red hulls bearing jagged insignias. Beckley spoke fast. Multiple capital ships. 6 cruisers. Escort fighters patrolling perimeter. And that, he pointed, looks like the weapon. The device hovered among debris, encased in green-tinted shielding. It pulsed. Thrummed. Like it was alive. Reed issued orders without hesitation. Fleet, hold the outer line. Drone squadrons 1 through 4, form a pincer pattern. All beam arrays, target the weapon but do not fire until my mark. Launch scout probes into the debris fields, look for survivors. Aye, Captain. Within seconds, the battlefield shifted. Formations realigned. Silence ruled, for one final moment. Then the Chthoni fired. Plasma bolts streaked toward the Retribution, lighting up space like a second sunrise. The shields rippled, absorbed the impact, but only just. Human ships returned fire in a chorus of vengeance, kinetic slugs, fusion torpedoes, beam cannons. Direct hits on 3 Chthoni cruisers, Beckley shouted. They're falling back. Pursue, Reed ordered, but keep eyes on the weapon. On the Chthoni command ship Azek Dominion, Commander Tox watched in disbelief as his forward line collapsed. They were supposed to hesitate, he hissed. Not fight like this. Zath, ever the realist, replied, you brought fire to a healer's hand. Now you've met the burn. Prepare Phase 2, Tox ordered. Activate the emitter. Let them see what true wrath means. Back on Retribution, Beckley paled. Sir, the weapon is charging. Radiation levels spiking. Targeting systems scrambled. Release the war drones, Reed commanded. Send in the Hammer squadrons. Take that weapon out. Hundreds of autonomous drones screamed into the fray, weaving past debris and enemy fire. They struck the green-shielded device in coordinated waves. The shield held. Until it didn't. One lucky torpedo penetrated the outer casing. A shockwave burst from the core, electrical, dimensional, and unexplainable. And for a moment, all of space went quiet. No fire. No movement. And then, a scream. Not heard through speakers, not processed by instruments. Felt. Through minds, hearts, bones. Every human on the battlefield gripped their heads. Some fell to knees. Others screamed in return. Trent stumbled. Psychic feedback. It's broadcasting emotions. Raw hatred. It's artificial. It's synthetic rage. Can we block it? Reed demanded. Not yet. But we can kill it. Reed's voice dropped to a whisper. Then we bury it. Target every heavy weapon we have, he continued, louder. I want full firepower concentrated on that emitter. Break the laws of physics if you must. Destroy it. And they did. The firepower of 50 human ships, unleashed in a single devastating barrage, turned the alien weapon into a collapsing singularity of molten alloy and warped energy. It imploded. Violently. Chthoni forces scattered. And from the debris, something moved. Not a ship. Not a weapon. An escape pod. Trent zeroed in, Velian life signs. It's her. It's Chief Medical Officer Nina Vel. Reed's jaw clenched, retrieve her. Give the Chthoni one last message. He activated the fleet-wide transmission. This is Captain Leon Reed of the Retribution. We came here to retrieve our dead. And to repay you in kind. Consider your warning received. The next time you raise a hand to a healer, expect it to be the last limb you ever raise. Echoes of shattered trust. In the aftermath of the emitter's destruction, space hung heavy with ash and ruin. The wreckage of both human and Chthoni vessels drifted in silent spirals, a graveyard illuminated only by the cold pulse of emergency beacons and ruptured fusion cores. On board the battleship Retribution, Captain Leon Reed stood in the medical bay, watching through reinforced glass as Chief Medical Officer Nina Vel was stabilized. Her escape pod had been barely functional, her vitals erratic, body starved and bruised from weeks in isolation. But she was alive. First Officer Trent entered quietly. Captain, scans confirm she's the last known survivor of the Mercy. Reed nodded slowly. And the Velians? Trent hesitated. The Chthoni didn't just jam their communications. They purged the entire colony. Nothing remains. Reed turned away from the glass, jaw tight. Send word to Admiral Lang. And prepare the fleet for deep pursuit. We're not done. Admiral Lang received the transmission aboard the Dreadnought Arbiter, now acting as mobile command for the Terran First Fleet. His face remained impassive as he reviewed satellite footage of the Velian colony's destruction, field scorched, architecture collapsed, civilian ships downed mid-escape. They wanted to erase the witnesses, he muttered. They wanted to provoke us, then hide the crime. Beside him, Strategic Officer Colonel Armin Vale spoke carefully. Sir, public support is surging across the colonies. Volunteers, resources, even reserve fleets are being reactivated. Lang turned toward the view screen, which showed a looping image of the Chthoni fleet's retreat. Then we take this all the way to the heart. Target the Chthoni inner systems. I want a battle group through every corridor they think is safe. And the weapon data? Vale asked. Send it to R&D and Intel. Quietly. The psychic emitter may be dead, but the concept won't stay buried for long. On retribution, Nina Vel slowly awoke, oxygen tube in place, skin pale against the sterile light. Reed sat beside her, arms crossed, eyes somber. "You should be dead," he said flatly. "So should you," she croaked. Silence. "I warned you," she rasped. "In my last broadcast." They knew. It was a test. A trap for the one race too noble to ignore a cry for help. Reed leaned closer. "Why? What did they want?" "Fear," she said. "They needed to remind the galaxy that hope could be crushed. They used our mercy as a message." Reed straightened. "Then we send one back." The message came days later. It wasn't a transmission. It was a body. Recovered near the border of Chthoni territory, floating in a stasis shell. It was Lieutenant Rami Dell, from the shelter, another lost medical frigate. His eyes had been removed. His fingers broken. Around his neck hung a data crystal. Reed played it privately. It showed Commander Tox, his reptilian features smug, voice laced with contempt. "You want truth? Here is your truth, human. Your compassion is your leash. Your pity, your poison. We struck you and you wept. We slaughtered your healers and you searched for survivors. We gave you war, and still you ask why." He leaned closer to the lens. "Because you are not feared. But we will teach you." Reed stood before his crew later that day, uniform pressed, voice unwavering. "We have watched allies falter and enemies embolden. We have held to a code that says mercy makes us noble. But let us be clear, mercy unguarded is an invitation to genocide. Today, we abandon naivety. Today, we show the Chthoni what it means to wound the hand that heals." Across every bridge, corridor, hangar, and control station of the Terran First Fleet, the message spread. There was no more illusion of peace. Only mission. Weeks passed. Operation Firewake began. Earth's fleet struck deep into Chthoni space. Outposts burned. Weapons silos crumbled. Pirate nests funded by the Chthoni were vaporized from orbit. On the command carrier Audacity, Colonel Vale oversaw blitz campaigns that crippled supply lines and collapsed regional command structures. "They're falling back faster than expected," Trent observed from the Retribution's war table. "Not fast enough," Reed replied. "They haven't felt loss. Not real loss. Yet." Trent looked up. "And what if their civilians become casualties?" Reed paused. "Then perhaps their next generation will choose peace." In the twilight of a ruined Chthoni world, a final skirmish erupted. Captain Reed led the ground assault personally. Marines stormed the blackened fortresses. Inside, they found vaults of stolen human tech. And in one, the plans for a second emitter. Larger. Mobile. Trent stared at the design. They were going to mount it on a battleship. Weaponize rage. Target entire fleets. Reed nodded once, "Then it's a good thing we came when we did." As orbital bombardment turned the final structure to ash, Reed made one final call. "This is Leon Reed, Terran Fleet Command. Mission complete. Chthoni installations neutralized. Their weapon erased. But understand this, our message isn't vengeance. It's clarity. The galaxy will not forget what we are capable of. Not again. War in the blood." In the depths of Chthoni space, silence had become rare. Orbital fires burned over broken moons. Planets that once bore the vibrant red banners of the Chthoni Dominion now flew no colors at all, only smoke. Captain Leon Reed stood aboard the Retribution, overlooking tactical readouts of 21 simultaneous offensives. His expression, like the stars outside, was cold. "Give me status," he ordered. Lieutenant Beckley was first to respond. "Operation Firewake has achieved full penetration of outer defense rings. Chthoni resistance fragmented. Third Fleet reports 2 enemy shipyards captured intact. Civilian impact, Reed asked. First Officer Trent paused. Hi. They used their cities as shields. Most of the casualties were non-combatants. Reed didn't flinch. Record it. Document everything. We won't hide from what war does. But we won't stop until they do. On Earth, protests ignited. News of civilian death clashed with patriotic fervor. Journalists wept while reading casualty reports. Others hailed Reed as the Iron Guardian of humanity. In the high halls of Terran Command, Admiral Lang convened a closed war council. We are winning, Lang began, but we are not yet victorious. The Chthoni haven't surrendered. And now, they've called on allies. Maps shifted across holodoubles, revealing new fleets gathering near the Tiven Rift, a lawless expanse where smugglers and old warlords once ruled. Chthoni remnants, Strategic Officer Vale noted. But also mercenaries, rogue 6L enclaves, and one confirmed Tychrothi warhost. Lang's eyes narrowed. Then we make a message of the rift. On the Retribution, Reed met privately with a new figure, Dr. Elon Syed, a civilian psychologist and neural warfare specialist. You're here about the emitter, Reed said flatly. Yes, Syed replied. We believe there's a blueprint embedded in the weapon's final pulse. A kind of psionic map. Can it be replicated? No, Syed said quickly. But it could be understood. Maybe even countered. If we study it in the right way. Reed stared at him. And the cost? Syed hesitated. We'd need test subjects. Exposure trials. Volunteers. Reed stood slowly. Humanity won't become what it fights. Not yet. The battle for Tiven Rift was unlike any other. The Rogue Alliance arrived in chaotic formation, pirate ships beside warlords, modified Chthoni vessels backed by stolen human tech. Reed led the assault from the front, tighten wedges. Suppress flanks. Concentrate fire on disruptor ships. Retribution burned through space like a living blade, drones screaming in a synchronized storm. Enemy ships fractured, exploded, collided. On the Warscard Bridge, Beckley shouted, enemy command cruiser retreating. Pursue. No survivors, Reed commanded. On the Chthoni flagship Zivak's Edge, Commander Tox watched in horror as his second alliance crumbled. Zath stood beside him, the wear of 100 lost skirmishes on his scales. The humans did not forget, Zath whispered. We taught them vengeance. Now they teach us consequence. Tox activated a final protocol. Deep in the ship's vault, a sphere pulsed green, the last fragment of the emitter core. Release it, Tox hissed. It launched. Not toward the human fleet. But toward a neutral colony world in the distance, Hesker Prime. It's a civilian planet, Trent yelled. They mean to poison the galaxy with grief, Reed growled. Intercept that core. Fighters surged forward, but the warhead gained speed. 30 seconds to impact. Then 20. Send the Kestrel, Reed ordered. The Kestrel was a prototype, half ship, half weapon, piloted by volunteer ensign Lyra Dawn, a neural interface ace with a 92% mortality prediction. Lyra, Reed said over comms, you don't have to do this. I was born on a Mercy frigate, she replied. This is my answer. The Kestrel reached the core. One final burst of speed. A radiant flash. And silence. The core never reached Hesker Prime. The colony survived. But Lyra did not. Reed stood alone after the battle, holding her insignia. Send her name across the stars, he told Trent. Let every world remember who stopped the last ember of that cursed weapon. Trent nodded, eyes hollow. Sir, what if it wasn't the last? Reed turned slowly. Then we make sure the next war ends before it begins. The silence before judgment. Months passed. Across the stars, the remnants of the Chthoni Dominion flickered and died. Worlds surrendered before fire reached orbit. Officers defected. Fleets refused to answer calls to arms. They were not conquered. They were shattered. And yet, the war had not truly ended. In orbit above Hesker Prime, Captain Leon Reed stared at the world he had saved at such cost. Below, fields bloomed again. Cities recovered. A monument to Ensign Lyra Dawn now rose in the planet's central square, etched with a single phrase. She gave her mind to save 1,000 more. But peace was not yet secure. On the Dreadnought Arbiter, Admiral Theodore Lang reviewed the final communiqué from the Chthoni interim government. Under pressure from their remaining elders, the Chthoni had requested a tribunal. They would stand trial for their crimes. They want legitimacy, Colonel Armin Vale said flatly. They want mercy, Lang replied. But they'll have judgment. At the Galactic Convergence Court, a neutral platform orbiting the ancient vault world of Detraxis, delegates from over 60 species gathered. Human ships formed a perimeter. Not to intimidate. To remind. Inside, Commander Tox was escorted to the center dais. He was thinner now. Paler. A shadow of the arrogant predator who once laughed in the face of humanity. Reed sat among the observers, flanked by Trent and Beckley. Nina Vell stood to his right, fully recovered, her eyes hard. Let it be known, said the court arbiter, an elder seraphine with crystalline skin, that the actions of the Chthoni Dominion, including unprovoked aggression, targeting of medical vessels, and deployment of psionic warfare, have triggered this tribunal. Tox said nothing. Even when asked to speak, he remained silent. In his place, Officer Zath stood and bowed. We offer no defense, he said. Only acknowledgement. We taught the galaxy to fear. And humanity taught us to feel it. The verdict was unanimous. Crimes against sentience. War atrocities. Violation of galactic neutrality statutes. Sentence, the complete dismantling of the Chthoni war infrastructure. All psionic weapon development banned. Surviving leadership exiled. Reparations rendered through 10 years of planetary labor service. As the court recessed, the galaxy shifted. Humanity, once a race of healers, now stood as something more. Not feared. Respected. On board Retribution, Reed found himself alone in the observation chamber. Once again, he watched the stars. Trent entered quietly. The fleet's being rotated home. We did it, sir. Reed shook his head. We survived it. The doing never really ends. Trent nodded. There's a message from Hesker Prime. Reed accepted it. A child's voice played across the chamber. Thank you, Captain Reed. My name is Jalen. I want to be a star pilot, like the lady who saved our skies. Mama says she was brave. I think you were too. Reed didn't speak. But his eyes moistened. The war had burned. It had scarred. But when the silence finally came, it did not fall with fear. It came with memory. And in its quiet, the galaxy breathed again. End of story. They attacked the wrong convoy, now humanity's wrath is unleashed.